so that we're not getting a bunch of emails with people saying, where are you? So we are here. Oh my goodness. Okay, we'll give just a moment here for everybody to get in. Love to hear where you are joining us from and who you are as you're filing in. I'm going to put us on gallery view for now. We'll switch over to you in a second. Hey, Joe. We got Joe in Chicago.
Hi, Joe. I'm a Joe, too.
That was always one of my favorite names, actually. I really wanted to name a daughter JoEllen or Josephine or something like that so that I would have a Joe, but it didn't happen.
No. Boys. Did you get a boy, Joe?
Nope, I have a boy, Braden, and a girl, Ella, and a girl, Karis. So wound up not it. I loved the name, but I don't know why. I guess that was like one of my favorite because I was a huge Little Women fan when I was a young girl.
Of course.
And so I loved Joe from Little Women.
All right. I was a Facts of Life fan.
Oh, yes, that Joe rocked it too. Loved her. Okay, well, we're just kind of chit-chatting while we're waiting for everyone to join in, but it looks like people are popping in here. Oh, yay. Hello, Italy. Oh, hey, that's Melinda. Let's see. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm just going to hit over a couple of housekeeping things really quickly before we get into this. So, Joe, I didn't even ask you. Yes, you have slides. She has a presentation, a formal presentation that she's going to give us. So I'm going to do an introduction. We're going to say hello. Then I'm going to pass the reins on to JoEllen, and she is going to give us her amazing presentation. So this is what I would say to you all. There is, if you're new to Zoom, which I would guess almost nobody is anymore after this. It used to be the disclaimer 3 months ago, and now it's like, yeah, we got Zoom. There is a Q&A session. If you are on your area, if you're on your phone, if you swipe one way or the other or tap on your phone or something, your menu bar should pop up. If you're on your computer, just scroll on it and you should see Q&A. I would love it if you would put questions in the Q&A, because with a bunch of people in a webinar like this, if you put your questions in it, by the time we get to the end of it, it's really hard to find them all. So we're going to do a presentation, do Q&A at the end. So if you can please put your questions in the Q&A session, that will help make sure that we don't overlook any of them. So with that being said, let me give a quick introduction. For those of you who are joining us from the Women in Publishing Summit, you probably already recognize JoEllen. She was our opening speaker for the entire summit this year. So, and that was a really interesting interview, not so much about editing, but more about having a plan for your author journey and your business, so that when life happens, how timely that conversation was, so that when strange things happen in life, you have a plan and you can bounce back from whatever comes your way. So, all right. So JoEllen Nordström is a professional editor, podcaster, entrepreneur, mama, and digital nomad. She is founder of FirstEditing.com, which has helped over 35,000 authors in the past decade. JoEllen's professional editing services company boasts hundreds of successfully published authors, bestsellers, and research publications. They assist fiction, nonfiction, academic research, and business authorities with editing for traditional, independent, and hybrid publishing. First Editing transforms writers into authors. Her company has the inside knowledge to help you successfully edit and prepare for your publishing journey, becoming an authority in your genre. Her podcast, publishingpower.com, and that's publishing-power.com for anyone who's looking that up, provides insightful interviews with step-by-step tips from writing industry authorities. I am struggling with reading today. She helps you write, edit, publish, and launch your book to success with proven strategies from proven experts. Personally, Jo has been successfully managing her online businesses now for 2, and then for some reason it just cuts off. I don't know if we
decades, I guess.
For 2 decades. There we go. For 2, fill in the blank. This is a create.
Yeah, sure. Whatever. It's more interesting when we're not reading any else. So No problem.
Oh my goodness. So thank you so much for being here with us today. This happens to
you.
coincide perfectly with the women at the WIP school that we're running, that we kick off at the end of the summit. And we're in month 2, and month 2 is all about editors, working with editors,
Good.
how to find an editor, when you get an editor, you know, all the things, the different types of editing. So it really worked out well to have you come in this month to confirm anything I have been telling them about working with editors. So this is great. All right.
Oh,
Well,
that's great.
I'm going to hand over the reins to you now.
Sure. Thank you for having me. This is exciting. So everybody's in the process of learning about editing and editors and stuff. So I will just try to go from the beginning to end. And any questions at all, please let me know, because editing is it's complicated in terms of understanding what it is and what you need. And it's also evolving. So it's changing, and people choose different paths for different reasons. So we'll kind of go over those, but I'm happy to just kind of give you the basics, give you a real outline, and then just let me know what you specifically, you know, need to know, and I'll do my best to answer that. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Here it is. And we're off. All right. So I work, as she mentioned, for FirstEditing. Let's see here. Is this going to go? There we go. All right. So basically, when should you get an editor for your book? And again, that's a big question. It can be around your budget, your fears, your anxiety. Can be your, I'm done with it. I cannot possibly look at this book any further. I don't want it. Any doubts. And always, 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 before you share, distribute, or publish. So all the others are optional before, but you must have some sort of editing before you distribute this, just because we all make mistakes. We're all human, and we need to do that. So as part of this, I just wanted to cover basic 10 steps here. I thought I'd try to keep it short and sweet. But what is an editor, and what do they do? What does editing actually entail? Well, it evaluates what your manuscript needs, and we'll tell you a lot more about that. It We'll cover how to get the best price and how to find qualified editors for your book, your genre. We want to determine where you are in your editing journey, because, you know, if you're at the very beginning and you're doing your outline versus being all the way to the end and really just looking for that final copy edit, they're totally different processes there. Finding somebody you can trust, because, you know, not all my editors fit all people. So of course, different people need different things, and it is a relationship. And what determines the price, how you can get that price down. I'll show you some ways to make sure you can save some money there. When, again, depending upon all those different factors, which services you need, definitely going to cover those. There are, in general, we can put them into 3 generic categories, but they can go farther or a little bit more if you want, but it's copy editing, line editing, and content editing. And then, of course, getting all the free help that you can, and learning and educating yourself like you are right now is a very, very great way to not only improve your craft as a writer and as an author, but also to save yourself some time and money when you're dealing with an editor. Because, to be honest, editing is probably the most expensive part of creating your book. Not the most part of launching your book, but definitely the most expensive part of creating your book. Most book designers and things like that, they should be nowhere the same cost. And why is professional editing necessary? We'll talk about that a little bit, and how does it reach your goals? And you do need to have goals when you're writing your book so that we can make sure you get there. So self-editing, I'm sure you've covered part of that. And there are some great online tools. 2 of them that I work personally with that I really recommend, and that's the only reason I work with them, is that Pro Writing Ald. It's free. You can download it. They have plugins. They have extensions. They also have a premium service, but you can get basically everything you need from them as a copy editing. And this helps you start to see your weaknesses. It helps you to see your repetitions of what you do. And it also teaches you how to be more succinct in your writing. Now with fiction, you might want a little bit more details, but definitely this changes everything. And editing is not just for your book. It's for your marketing. It's for your communications. It's for your emails. It's for everything that you need. So I would highly recommend that you go on Pro Writing Aid and get their free plugin and put it in. It works in Google Docs. It works in a lot of the other online Scrivener and some of the other tools that are out there that you might be using. The other one, if you're writing a fiction book, then I do recommend Fictionary. They have a fantastic, amazing tool that shows you your story arc, your conflict, your resolution, all of your different characters, and it really helps you understand the process, and it gives you the template of a successful book writing for fiction. So another one, if you're doing any kind of academic or structural work, is a new one that I just met this week, and I am so excited to work with her. It's Essay Jack, and that's more for, you know, your white papers and your information like that. Nonfiction, there are some out there, but I haven't got one that I'm really gonna go crazy over just yet. So when I do, I will be sharing everyone. I need to get you the link. We wrote a book, so if you really want to dig in, if you are a reader, and most writers are, we did do recently a book there, and I'll get you that download and send it on to you so that you can find that. So let's just get started. First one was, how do you want to evaluate what your manuscript needs? Well, when you look at your manuscript, you need to decide, do you need a copy edit, a line edit, or a content edit? And you'll hear content editing also referred to as developmental, structural, or substantive editing. So basically, it's the highest level. Copy edit is the final level, and line editing is where you're doing a lot of the revisions. So you need to compare those services and then figure out which one is what you need. If you don't know, then you definitely should ask an editor. We do free professional reviews and samples, so you know, send it to us or somebody else, but let them tell you where they think you are, because that's where they're going to want to work with you anyhow. And you know, most editors are not going to recommend more than you need. They will recommend what they think you need in terms of professionalism, and then if you want more, of course they can help you with that, but the best editor will not provide you less than what you need, because it's a disservice to you and to themselves and their reputation. So they cannot provide you a lower level of editing. So when you go into this, the developmental, structural, and content editing is the high level. As we said, once you've got that and you know your storyline, you know your objectives and what you're writing about, what you're going to, you know, what your purpose of this manuscript is, then you get into the revisions. And when you're doing revisions, the line editing is where you're going to be. And then the final one before you format, that is copy editing. So developmental editing, we have a lot of panters out there, those who fly by the seat of their pants. Yes, you still need developmental editing because you've got all these ideas, and it's kind of good to have somebody come in there and help you sort this through. But it also means those who are planners really love it, because they're the person who doesn't want to leave anything out. They want to make sure that they've covered all the areas. And I think that you need to look at that. And the big question here is it any good? And, you know, how can your editor answer that question? Is they're going to look at it from the structural and the development. Are you creating are you creating an engaging story, regardless if it's fiction or nonfiction? Are you engaging your audience? Do you have them wanting to turn the page? If you are creating some kind of curiosity, are you leaving little cliffhangers here and there? Are you getting the resolution that you want? So those are very important things. Line editing, again, as I mentioned, once you've started doing that back and forth, this is when your revisions, you know, you've gone through that, you picked it apart, and then you've gone in personally and you've fixed things, done different things. Then the line edit is basically going line by line to make sure that it all makes sense, and then it smoothly flows and you can read all that. Copy editing is the last one, as I said, before formatting. You'll hear people say proofreading, copy editing. Technically, proofreading is not editing. It's the final look. And why you have a proof is that because when you put your book, especially now, because we do it ourselves, we put our books into these platforms and these formats. And when that happens, it kind of takes it up and it juggles it around, and sometimes it does some very interesting things to your book. And you want to have a proofreader go in there, not to tell you, this is not where they're going to tell you, oh, you really messed up. That's, they're just going in to say it's formatted, and, and they might catch, a comma or an apostrophe, because we are still humans here. The best editors are humans, but for the most part, they're going to make sure that it lays out and that it's still just got that final, extra eyes to make sure that it doesn't embarrass you. And don't skip that process. Always, from the proofreader, but also yourself. You need to always read your book last before you put it out there on everything. So how do you get the best price and find an editor? Well, you're going to start using those writing tools that I mentioned, and there are many more out there. Please, this is, whatever fits you. Different people have different reasons for using different tools, but the more tools you have available to you, the better prepared you are. Self-editing can be as simple as putting it down for 2 weeks and walking away and coming back. It can be reading it one chapter or even one page at a time backwards, starting at the very back and reading that page, because you just get so far in the woods you can't see the trees. Also, you can definitely read it aloud. That's a very good tip for self-editing, because it forces you to slow down. Most writers are fast readers, so by slowing down, you get more, and you can hear how it sounds, and you'll start to hear it from a little bit better. So, and then just keep revising again and again and again. Last year, I was at the book expo of America in New York, and I happened to run into Malcolm Gladwell, who's one of my favorite all-time authors and podcasters. And I asked him, you get 5 seconds with this person, like what do you recommend to authors out there? And he just said, rewrite, and rewrite, because it's never done. It's never done. And this is coming from somebody who's got loads and loads of best-selling books out there. So again, take it from the most successful people out there. So you want to compare the editors and figure out which one do you want to work with and how do you want to do that. So the content editors are using this high-end, they're looking at your thoughts, your ideas, your organization, your structure. How are you developing your characters? How are you developing the interest? How are you keeping someone engaged and turning that page? They are not looking, normally, they may do a little bit, but normally they're not looking at your grammar, spelling, punctuation as much. They're not looking at your transitions, they're going to let you just, as they say, puke it out. And then they're going to pick it through. They're going to start to create this big puzzle, and they're going to put it in the colors, and they're sorting it, but it's not all together yet. So you will get a lot of notes and a lot of feedback and a lot of suggestions, which are all optional. So it is subjective. So you really need to get somebody that you trust who's very experienced in your genre and that is familiar with your favorite authors that you're trying to emulate, and work with them. So, but again, this is the highest part. It is it's the critique. It's the professional critique. You should get a professional summary letter and all of this, and it's very important. We do at our company, we do the content editing for fiction or for nonfiction. For a fiction edit, if you want to get the highest level, it's something called a story coach, and a story coach is basically using this fantastic software to go through and make sure that your story arc and your development of each scene, your development of each character, your use of all the 38 different story items are being used to their best care there. And then also you're going to, if you're doing an academic document, then you're doing something more substantive, making sure that your proposal and your theory is backed by very, very strong validations there. So it's important. The line editors are probably what most people are most familiar with, and this is where you're bringing it in and you're no longer in the thought process and the abstract area. You know the story, you feel pretty confident in it. You might have some questions, and that's okay. But a line editor is going to look at your tone and your voice. They're going to make sure that you use the right point of view, that your subject verb is correct, that if you start in first person, you stay in first person. And if you start to head hop with each scene, that we need to know that when you are in, you know, whose head are you talking from? Which perspective are we talking from? Because sometimes you just do that and the reader is lost. Well, what happened? And it really needs to be clear on how you're using that. So they also make sure it's smooth, and all of their suggestions that they provide are going to be something to enhance this. And again, everything's optional, but they will the best editors will make sure that they're paying attention to your voice. They're not going to edit away your voice. If you're using a dialect, if you're using a certain way of speaking or talking or looking at things, they want to represent that fully. So they're going to do all of that to keep it to you. And if they can't do it themselves, they're going to make comments to say, you know what, you're lacking something here. Right here, I need you to tell me a little bit more. So line editors are very good at that. But their main process is to look literally line by line and make sure that it's flowing and it's smooth and it sounds professional, and that you can walk away feeling proud and that you are confident to approach an agent or publisher or another, you know, publishing editor, so that you can do that. We do strictly the services. So what I'm talking from are the strict, you know, this is editing the actual verb, the task. So this is how we're doing that. And then copy editors, again, they're the ones who are looking at your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation. And, you know, it's very easy. The best of the best of the best of the best authors still come in. They always have their own copy editors to maintain their reputation. They would never even submit to their own in-house editor before they do their own editing, or their own copy editing, because it's so easy to make mistakes. And yes, you have track changes, and yes, you have word, you know, you have your automatic corrector, but as we know, same as autocorrect on our phones, it doesn't catch everything, or sometimes it helps a little bit too much. So copy editors, having the human copy editor is great. And again, we have this whole, you know, AI, artificial intelligence, is amazing right now. And I've had loads of conversations with the owner and the directors of Writing Ald and everything they're doing and dealing with data. And yet still, when I use them day to day, I still have to tell it, you know, 10, 20% of the time, ignore. This is not what I want you to do. Please do not change this, because you're changing the whole meaning. And, you know, language evolves. So it will get better, and it will, and it is amazing, don't get me wrong, but you still want to have somebody in there who says, did you really want to say it like that? So the next step that we're covering is, where are you in your editing journey? So that says, are you still in the outlining developmental phase, or are you in the revision phase where you've done it a couple times, you've been through it so many times? And this is normally where the frustration comes in. This is where you may need the editor. You may need the editor to help you sort out your ideas at a higher level, but if you're getting frustrated that you want to quit, then it's a good time to bring us in, because don't quit. This is your baby, and you really want to bring it to fruition. And then, of course, you must do this before you do any distribution and you start sharing it. And of course, lastly, after you've formatted it, I still encourage you to get a proofreader to go ahead and go through that, and they can do a copy edit proofread. I love this diagram. I stole this from Pictionary. This is the editing process. You'll notice it's not linear. It's a mess. It could be a spider web. It could be just a big ball of stuff jumbled together, because it really is, you don't go forward. Sometimes you come back, you regress a little bit, you go forward. And it depends. If you get this great idea in the middle of the night and you have to add 5 chapters and something happens, then that's okay. You're going to go back, and you don't have to redo the whole thing, maybe, but you do need to make sure that each section goes through and it's congruent. So again, it's showing you that as you're writing and you're doing your story edit, and then you start to get your beta readers in, you probably want to do some editing before and or after that. You always need a copy edit, and then you've got the proofreading and the publishing. So who can you trust to do this? Well, let's talk about that. Not your mom and not your best friend. So they're just gonna tell you everything that you want to hear, and they love you, and they're not gonna be honest. probably not your teacher or your colleague. And to be honest, today's world, especially right now, we're all pretty busy. Don't put this on somebody who doesn't have the time or energy, because you're not going to get what you need back. And you only want to deal with experienced, educated, and people who are vetted. And by vetted, I mean that they've gone through a hiring process, they've gone through a communications training, they know how to tell you what's good, and they know how to tell you what's bad without destroying your little ego. So again, that's very important. Somebody who is like a personal trainer. This is somebody who runs it all through there. So what can you expect from somebody when you find them? They're going to be able to show you their past work. They're going to be able to show you all of their, and I get this again and again, well, I had a non-disclosure agreement. There should be ways for you to know who they've worked with. And they should have a large enough repertoire that there's no doubt they can show you what they're capable of. They should be able to let you try. So ask them for a sample. Show me what you're going to do. Get some references, and if you call them up. Ask them what they did, especially depending upon what level of editing you're doing, if it's consultation or if it's just getting the actual work done. Confirm what level of what you want, but let them tell you what you need. And don't opt for less than what they say you need, because a good editor is going to tell you no. And then determine the price up front. And I would be careful. A good editor knows how fast they can work. They also are able to evaluate how much work it's going to be. But you don't want any surprises. And in the same way, when you deal with freelancers, I guess this is my big warning out there. You can go on to Upwork, you can go to Fiverr, you can go to these different places, and there are some really great editors and writers on there. Don't get me wrong, but make sure that you know that they're going to stick around, because as we know, this last month, my world, my personal life, you don't want to see it. and if I was dealing with just one client and I didn't have an army of editors to do everything, wow, you just need to know that they're going to deliver on time. So have a timeline and talk about what happens if that timeline gets messed up. And, maybe that you don't have to pay as much or something. And find out what happens if and when you find any errors or you have any questions. What's the process for that? Because you should have questions. You should. And a good editing process is like an MBA. I mean, you're learning about yourself, you're learning about your craft, you're learning how to be a really great writer, and you will walk away with much more than just an edited manuscript. So take a look at that. What determines the price? Well, what do you need? If you're really struggling with grammar, spelling, punctuation, and it takes the editor 3 times as long to do that, then that's going to go up on the price. So use those online tools I've talked about. Make sure that they're, the basics are there. Where you are in the process, a higher level edit it takes longer, and it takes more skills from people who do that as the day-to-day. If you go in to see a doctor, you want a specialist. So you don't go to your general GP for other things that you need. And then, of course, what are your desires? For example, we've had authors who come in and said, I want to meet with you weekly. I want to be online. I want to do this. Well, of course, that's a huge commitment. But if budget is the consideration, then basically get the services you need and be willing to do that yourself. So do you want coaching, a critique, a revision? Are you looking for approval? Is this, can I proceed to the next level? Can I distribute this? And then, of course, the proofreading. So when should you start? When you have it outlined, when you've done all the self-editing yourself, when you've had enough, and before, always, always, always. So all those top ones above are optional, but good places to start asking yourself. And then lastly, always before you publicly share or distribute, because that's your reputation and people will not read it twice. You're competing with millions of authors out there. Amazon changed the world. It's no longer, nobody cares, to be honest. I don't know how else to say it, but you've got to get them to care. So don't insult them the first time. Treat them with the respect they deserve to want to continue. So that's really good. And what do you need? Well, they're based upon your status and, again, your needs and your goals. Something we haven't talked about there, but what do you want your book to do? Do you want it to be a bestseller? Do you want to just share your story? Do you want to make a living off of this? Do you need this to be your calling card when you're going out and meeting other people as a business person? Or do you want that to, you know, that business card kind of thing for your own status, for your own glory? And all of those are totally fine, but figure out what it is. Or are you trying to convey instructions or support or different information or inspiration for people out there? So decide what those are, and then of course, whatever the editor recommends, listen to that and decide if it matches what you think you need, because sometimes they won't, you know, and that's okay. You know, just it's just an application process. So you're interviewing them and they're interviewing you to make sure that before you get married, you do a little dating. So how can you find assistance or help before hiring them? You can use the online tools. You can join writing groups. You can take these courses like Alexa is offering here and make sure that you actively participate and do the work. And yes, it takes time, and yes, it's an investment, but you will invest your time or your money or both. And you know, that's just the way it is. But be careful when you're doing it. Then of course we have books and blogs and courses online for how to edit. So, you know, I guess when I put that there, be careful with the beta readers, and when you get into recommendations and people are reviewing each other's work, go in open-minded, be open to the suggestions, but be aware that, you know, some people don't have anything else to do, and they may be tearing apart things that maybe you don't need to worry that much about. So if you have a clear goal and objection and you get somebody who's professional, they'll tell you, are you meeting the steps necessary to achieve your goal? And that's way more important than what somebody else thinks about the color or the description that you're using at that particular moment. So be careful of that, because it can be brutal out there. And unfortunately, the more online we get, the less kind people can be, unfortunately. So why is the professional editor necessary? Why are we still existing in this world of artificial intelligence and Google? Well, it's basically your investment of time and money. And if you have put in all this time and money into creating this book, I suggest that you take the final polish to make sure that it's worth handing over. It is your baby, and you are emotionally invested and loving this child. But to get them to the next level, you normally need a trainer or a coach or a teacher that we're all missing right now to get your baby to the next level of education and the next level that they need to proceed in life and to live on their own outside of your dreams. And I think that's probably the comparison I'm trying to say here. So it's your reputation, and your reputation is very important. You only get one time and they're not coming back. So it's your first impression, and your best choice is to always have somebody human to explain why they're suggesting what they're doing and why they think you should do it the way that they think. So your goals, it's all about becoming a successfully published author, becoming the person that you anticipate. Michelle Obama here, got to meet her last year, other one of my favorite authors. So again, professional editor is going to confirm your goals and make sure that the purpose of your book is being supported by the ideas and words that you're using within it. So they're going to help you tell the story, fulfill your goals, your credibility, you're making sure that you're ready to publish before you do it. Don't go too fast. You can get to a point of frustration, and just because you can push the button doesn't necessarily mean you should. And they're going to help you outline the process so that you are ready to sell the books and help motivate, inspire, educate the other people that are your designated audience there. So they're going to help clarify your voice and your ideas and your skills and make you a better craftsman in terms of writing. And I think that's really, really important. So make sure that you take advantage of this. It costs the same amount of money to edit your book as it does to get the education during the editing process. So please be part of the learning experience and benefit from that, because it really does make a huge difference. So that's pretty much how we do it. Our name is FirstEditing because after you edit, then you can publish. And thank you. I will stop sharing the screen, and any questions we can address.
We have some for you.
I
Okay.
bet. Oh,
All right, I'll read them out to you. Okay, the first one is from Calvin, and he would like to know about pricing. He'd love to know kind of generally a ballpark figure for the content edit of an 80,000 word novel.
okay. So, and with the content edit, you're looking anywhere at the low end. The low end would be 3 or 4 cents per word. That would be the low end. And on the higher, 6 to 10%, 10 cents, not 10%, 10 cents per word can be. It really depends upon what you want to do. A Toyota, a Mazda is a really great engine, and they will drive forever, and they'll get you where you want to go. But if you want the BMW, there's always somebody out there to sell you a BMW. So I would say on our end, we're around the 3-4 cents per word, 5 or 6 if you go into, say, a story coach. And we are on the low end of that because we've been in the game for a couple of decades now, and we have a consistent conveyor belt. I have an army of authors or editors who are sitting there, and the authors are just coming through day by day. So we keep our editors busy where they have a full-time job and they don't have to search or market or do all the other stuff. When you hire a freelancer or somebody who's working independently, you have to be hired because there's nobody, they don't know when their next job is coming. They don't know what they're doing, and that's okay. You will get them personally and a lot more information maybe, but the quality will be the same in terms of, as long as you have a very experienced editor. And I think that comes from looking at their people that they've worked with before, and making sure that you can, again, do the dating before you get married. Ask for a free sample. Make sure that this person, sometimes in our business here, I'll get somebody says, I like the ideas, but I don't really, can I get another sample from somebody else? And we say, yeah, sure, okay, here you go. And so, they go, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. And it was just, for whatever that day didn't match, and that's okay, no offense, move on. So I hope that answers. On the lowest end, you're going to be 3-4 cents a word, and then on up.
Cool. I've got it. I don't know if you have one of these on your websites, but I know that Readsy has a it's an article for freelance editors to figure out how much to charge, but there's a little calculator in there, so you can go in and you can select by genre and by all of those kinds of things. So I just threw the link in there, and that can help you kind of figure out what you need and what you're looking for. Okay. But it's very similar to what you just said. So
correct.
Barbara wants to know, apparently you mentioned an academic editing program. What's the name of that?
Essay Jack, ESSAY JACK. And I just spoke to the owner and co-founder last week, and they basically have a template, and it's really phenomenal. It's for anybody from a student in even high school down to a thesis dissertation on up to a researcher who might be using a second language. And what it has is it basically shows you the different types. It has a template for the different types of documents that you may be writing. If it's even speeches they have there. And so you say that, and then it'll give you the format. And then it gives you little prompts on how you want to start, which instead of sitting there and staring at this blank page, oh my gosh, I have to write a white paper about X, and I don't know how to do this. It gives you like a choice of 5 to 10 different sentences to get you started. And I was blown out of the water. And really, we do academic editing, and I want to get that tool for our clients who are struggling at the beginning, especially theses, dissertations, white papers. So yeah, essayjack.com.
Okay. Can you do copy, line, and content edit all at once, or do you sign up for each of those individually?
You can get a content edit at a high level that will include it will definitely, when we do it, it's kind of hard for my editors who've been doing it so long, and they're so good that they can't really separate that. However, that being said, if you're doing a high level content or developmental edit, you're going to change a lot of stuff. So you're going to cut, remove, you're going to change so much that you're going to have to come back at some point and at least do a final copy edit. Okay, I think you can do a line and content edit, especially if you're on a budget. We totally get that. But for your own benefit, you really do need to have that final copy edit, because you're going to have changed so much and introduced so much new stuff and rearranged things that you really need to have somebody come in. And that can be the same editor, but ideally, I think you should use, you know, another editor who is fresh to the ideas to make sure it reads, because again, you've just taken this other person in the woods with you and you're looking at the same trees.
Right. Oh, this is a fun one. How can a young person get started in the editing industry? Her daughter, Diane's daughter, is interested.
There are a lot of the courses out there. New York has some great editing courses to become an editor, and you know, your education basically is going to be at the university level. There are very few people who are able to do editing. They can do proofreading. There are online proofreading courses, but an editor really needs to have the background and the experience and the training to do it again and again. And that comes not only from doing and reading other people's books, which you think, oh, well, I've got to go to opinion. Yeah, it's kind of like the beta readers. That's a good place to kind of get into it. But you kind of need to work in the publishing industry. You need to get familiar with what they are looking for and what they need. And that is changing and evolving. In the last 10 years, you know, what would get an attention of a publicist is totally, or an agent is totally different, because if you don't come in with 10,000 followers, then they're not going to look at how great of quality it is anyhow. So it's really complicated, but you do need to go ahead and approach this the same as you would any high-level profession, and that means you need to go to the university. You need to get a degree, and you need to take it in, and you'll enjoy it. Editors love it. They love to sit in those lit classes, and they'll do their own theses and dissertations, and that's all part of the process. But it takes time and experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think this is something that people really need to pay attention to when you're looking at editors, because there are so many freelance editors out there that are basically just people that love the English language, but are not necessarily trained in as being an editor. And that's something that we've found a couple of times along the way. We worked with people who were really good writers and then decided they wanted to be editors, and you know, that can be a great scenario, but we've also had situations where when we worked with someone like that and then we submitted our book for a book award, and one of the specific feedback on this one particular book was, who was your editor? They needed to re-edit. And it was like, ouch,
Oh.
That's not what you want to hear from a judge.
No.
So
No.
it is important. I mean, this, like you said it at the very beginning, like the most expensive thing that you're going to invest in your book is the editing, but it's also the most critical part, because some people will still buy your book even if the cover's ugly. But if they cannot read the book, if there's so many issues or problems, or, you know, then you get bad reviews, you get, you know, bad press, you get all kinds of stuff. So, okay. Nancy wants to know, she says, I know a lot of editors are booked out far in advance. When is it too early to book an editor?
Again, it depends upon if you're going to look at this as a coaching system. There are a lot of now what people are calling book coaches, book shepherds, book, you know, helpers, whatever. And, you know, I am a big fan of coaching. I'm a big fan of being held accountable. So if you want to do that, but that may or may not be an editor, you know, the editor is actually looking at the value of what you've already invested and the validity of the ideas and the structure and of what you're presenting. So you're going to get to the editor when you have a solid foundation of what you believe is going to work, and you have definitive questions. If you're still in the, I'd really like to write a book, then you're probably going to, you know, where I've got all this knowledge in me, and I know, especially with nonfiction, that's very admirable. We've all been doing this for so long, and you just need to get it out of here and onto paper. Then you definitely need to get a book coach and they can put you on a timeline and a schedule and a course, and they can show you all this. But once you get to the level of, okay, well, now you've got it on the paper, how's it looking? You know, I don't know. Then that's when you're looking for the person called an editor.
Right. I mean, otherwise you can work with writing coaches or
Yeah.
collaborative writers or all kinds of things who do that.
Ghost writers even.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great, and they all have a good purpose. So I would not recommend them. In fact, I if you can afford and have the coaching, the more help you can get, the better. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think I have an idea of what your answer might be to this question, but what are the best resources for finding an editor?
Yeah.
Might it be FirstEditing?
Yeah, of course. But again, as I said, we're not ideal for everyone. So the best way is to get online, and I would start with, okay, who is your favorite author? And who do you want to emulate? Who do you want to be similar to? And where are they, what kind of genre are they doing? And then when you approach editors, ask them, are they familiar with this? Are they, and include that in your instructions or your interview process or whatever. We're pretty streamlined, as I said. We've been around for 15, 20 years now in just pure editing. Before that, we were doing ghostwriting and other kinds of different works. So the question is, can you show me what you can do, and have specific questions? The more specific you can be, the more honest your editor can be. But if you don't know what you need, then it's better to come into somebody who you can afford. And that's kind of our niche, is we're the highly affordable and super experienced and can keep you on a firm deadline because we have an army of editors. So I think that's the best way to do it. But online, if you are somebody who likes to interview and question and pick, and you love to shop, then welcome to the internet. You're gonna spend days, years, months there, and don't get analysis paralysis is the best question. But my easy answer is try before you buy. Get a sample, make sure that you know what you want and that it feels right.
Yeah, I agree. And also because of that relationship with an editor is so important, that it's really, really important to have that sample edit so you can see how you jive and how, just that part. So, okay. If you can't afford all of the levels of editing, what is the do not pass this one up option? Which can you not do without? Tiffany wants to know.
When you get a review from a publisher or an agent, or like you said, you were entered in a contest and somebody says back, you should have had this edited. They're normally not referring to copy editing. They're normally referring to a line edit to make sure that it keeps your voice, that it's going smoothly, that it is, that you didn't leave out something major. You didn't switch cities and we don't know where you are. You did not hop, as we said, from one head to the other. So I think that you can get a line editor who does quite a bit of good copy editing in there, and it will be covered. But that's going to give you, the basis of where you need to start, because that's what, even if you're doing your thesis or dissertation, they're going to tell you, go get this edited. And that means make sure it's following the structure of the standards of the genre that you're attempting to write in. And if you don't know that, they will. So they're going to make sure any of your citations, any of your footnotes and things like that are important, but also that you're following the basic storyline, the story arc, and when you're creating different things to happen there. They may not give you all the feedback because that's not what they're doing. They're not expecting you to do a major change. The difference between content and lines, maybe I need to back up, is that when you're doing a line edit, they're assuming that this is it. You're not really going to make major structural changes. So they just, they're going to make it as good as they can from where you are.
Yeah.
But if with the content, they're saying, okay, you really want to knock this out of the ballpark. Okay, so I would get rid of chapter 5. I'd move chapter 10 down here to chapter 2. I'd reassess this. I would break these scenes are great, but they're not all in one chapter. We need to break this down. So they're doing more of that, when you see the magic screen, it's basically going to move it here, put it there, put it around here. And they're doing all of that. But the line editor is absolutely making sure that you save your reputation, that you're smooth and you're clean, and you know how to grammar, spelling, punctuation is not overlooked. Just because that's not their focus, they're not going to overlook it.
Okay. So I assume, so a lot of editors that I've come across now are charging by the word, not by the hour, but I know there are still some hourly people out there. So Sandy wants to know if you can set a guideline or expectation about how long each level of editing takes so that you're not being overcharged. Like if you get a copy edit and they charge you for 400 hours, that's a big copy edit.
That's a very good copy of it. That, we've never dealt with it on an hourly basis because, some editors are very fast and some are very slow. Most editors who've been doing it for at least 10 years, which almost all of my editors, I can't think of anybody that's less than 10 years experience. They know how fast or how slow they can be. But in general, if you give them full document before you start and they can review it, at least just scan through it, they're going to see your weaknesses and they can allocate how much it's going to cost according to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can put time limits on it. It sounds like you're in the wrong relationship.
Yeah, I definitely would go by word, not hours, just because, I mean, good grief, it can, woo. Let's see, how can you find genre-specific editors? For example, she's looking for an urban fantasy editor.
Urban fantasy. You can Google them. Somebody needs to understand what is urban. How are we dealing with that? Are you dealing with erotica? Are you dealing with sci-fi? Are you dealing with the children's tween book versus the smaller, children's book? All of those genres need to be covered. And when you submit to that editor, they're either advertising them individually or say if you're on our site, then there's a drop down, of all the areas that we cover. And if you don't see it there, then write in your questions and, somebody will call you back, say, yes, we have that. They've done that before, or no, we don't. So, carry on, but make sure that you ask them. Urban is very popular and you need to, if you have questions, then of course ask them to show you the clients that they've done. I know that we have a whole list of, okay, these are our successfully published authors. And if you look in urban, these are the ones that who have been successful with that, or at least been edited.
You mentioned a professional summary. Is that something that is done for all levels of editing or just the developmental?
Developmental.
Okay. And that's cool. I don't think we've ever gotten a professional summary before. Of course, I think I do a lot of nonfiction, so we don't do a lot of developmental edits. We don't have a lot of developmental editing. It's mostly just copy and line editing for a lot of those genres. But I would imagine that's extremely useful. What can someone expect from that professional summary?
Professional summary is going to give you a basic critique of how they perceive your overall storyline, your overall manuscript, on what strengths and weaknesses are. It's going to perhaps address where your areas that you need to pay more attention to it. Maybe you have crutch words that you use again and again. Maybe you need to change the point of view or your verb, which tense you're using, because it can be more active, and being more active is a lot more interesting. It's very easy to maybe focus too much at, especially if you're dealing with nonfiction, dealing too much with the what you're getting as opposed to the benefits that you gain. So don't give them too much of the technical stuff. Okay, I can tell you again, we do grammar, spelling, punctuation, blah, blah, blah. But if you want to know what an editor does, well, they make you feel confident. you stop worrying, you have less stress. You know that you've done everything you're supposed to do so that you can stop double questioning yourself again and again. So a summary letter will tell you if you're focusing too much or presenting things in too much of an area like that. And it will point out specific areas. So it's basically like a cover letter that goes over everything that they should have pointed out individually in the notes, but it allows you to come in with that overview. It's kind of like the intro. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. And then, so they don't have to mark again and again and again. Okay, yeah. You're going back here, that why they're tagging these things again. Oh, did it again. Oh, did it again.
Okay, I have seen something similar to that.
Mm.
But I like maybe not as robust. That sounds like a really fantastic
It
tool.
can be quite long. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Mhm.
Okay, I have a developmental edit and a line edit from an editor. I have not gone back to ask questions regarding her comments. Should I do this?
Yeah, if you don't understand it, absolutely, absolutely. But again, if you've waited a long time, then maybe read the book before you just ask the questions. You know, make sure that you're reading and you've made the revisions. Because if she's or he has made these suggestions and you haven't done the revisions along the way, it may not be as pertinent as if you had made all the division. You know, it's a dance. It's not a one thing. You can ask, and I can say that we have done a lot of editing where they've just said it. This is it. I'm done. I don't want to touch anymore. And that's okay, but you should never ever accept all and move on. You need to read through and understand, and the notes and the suggestions are there to help you understand. And if you don't agree with them, again, it is your baby. This is your baby. Love them the way that you know best.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you don't understand it and you have done the revisions, absolutely go back. But please make sure you've done the revisions just to respect their time and professionalism.
Okay, this is I think, more of a, how much time do you recommend between editing and publishing date?
That is going to be part of your overall book launch and how prepared you are. That has nothing to do with the editing per se, because you should have your audience ready. You should be so
Right.
there's a huge process. And I don't know if you've ever talked to Carly King, but she has a fantastic, extremely dense book of everything from publishing a book. And if you really want all the when and where, that's a good place to start. But you're going to see there's so many cogs in this clock
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
really need to have them all working together, and you cannot answer independently. The arm is not separate from the body.
Our timeline for our clients is a minimum of 3 months, and generally 6 months from the time we have a final edited manuscript for the purpose of building the audience and getting out advanced review copies and things of that nature. Because I mean, yeah, and the nice thing is, I mean, we've actually found when we've taken more time and we've gotten the book out in front of a lot of advanced readers, we have had other things, because like you said, editors are people, they make mistakes. We have had other things get pointed out to us that we're like, oh, okay, well now we have time to change this before it hits the print. So yeah, I like, just for audience growth and book launch timelines, I like a minimum of 3 months, prefer 6 to 9, even 12 months, depending on, again, it goes back to the goals of the book. If you're trying to create a New York Times bestseller, you probably need 12 months just of marketing and audience growth. But
and it goes in waves. I was speaking to Mike Stickler, I believe it was, and he was talking about they do a lot of nonfiction, and when they do that, you know, he has it built in waves. That the first book out, you know, is they're going with the hardback, and they do that for a year, and then they do the softback for another year, and then they do the ebook for another year, and now they're doing the audiobook, because they're looking at the long term, and they're using that as their calling card. And they're also, part of his business is to book the presentations where that book's going to be sold and what it's being part of. So again, you really, and that's not one for everyone, because it's a very expensive commitment. But if it works, you get all that money back plus. However, you need to really have that goal. And you know, everything comes back to the beginning and end. Why do you want this? Why are you doing this? And if you can keep that little Post-it note in front of you the whole time, then your answers will be based upon that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, and then if you're publishing your book for your legacy for your children or whatever, you probably can finish the editing and do the layout. And then, I mean, that's how we've got a couple clients that they're zero interest in marketing. They're just publishing this book. So it's always going to go back. And same as with your goals with your book for knowing what you need in terms of editing. I think it's the same in publishing timeline.
Exactly.
Let's see here. We've got a couple more, but we only have one more we are running out of time. So let's see here. Do you have editors for all genres?
I think so.
Good to know.
I mean, genres, this is the amazing part about, again, Amazon changed the way we look at things, but you know, you can niche it down to, you want somebody who does science fiction about gold and silverware. I don't know, that maybe I can't do that. But if you have the higher, you know, what the genre is as a whole, then of course we're covering that, and we try to help you. And if we don't, we're going to be very honest with you, because it's to your point. But again, it's about the personality first.
Yeah.
And you know, if they've got a long history of it does overlap, it may not be exactly, but if you have specifics that you're concerned about, then make sure you're doing that. Again, your personality is going to affect who you choose and why.
Someone else would like to know, how do you how does your team respond with revisions from your editors? Do you get them phone, video, written, all of the above?
To respond depends upon which level of editing you purchase. And again, we try to keep it very affordable, so you can come back and after your revisions at any time. But say you're doing the story coach editing, then you know that wraps in, and you come back and we'll do the line edit and different proposals there. So we always have availability on the emails, always, and we always have your account agent or whatever, you know, our administrator who's acting on your behalf, and you can call them or chat with them at any time and make sure that we can get it back. If you want to have a consultation with the editor, then we do that. As I said, we kind of protect them. We keep them. We do all the marketing. We do all of the advertising and all of that hard stuff. And they get to focus and be just editors. And that's a very fortunate role to have, because it's not easy to find that job. And so we do that, but so we try to make sure that when you want to have that consultation, it's not a buddy talk, that you actually have real concerns, and that we're going to address it absolutely as a professional. And if you find any errors, we're going to fix that. And if you need a consultation, then we can recommend that. But basically, once you do your revisions, again, as I mentioned before, you know, respecting their time and their energy by making sure you've done your part. And when you come back with those questions, absolutely, then we want to make sure that you understand them fully. And I don't know of any of my editors who would not want to do that, because they love to serve. They love to, you know, it becomes their baby too. They do feel like,
yeah. Absolutely. And your packages, do you have like a round of edits and then another round of revisions, or how is it just someone had asked if once they make all the changes and send it back to their editor, do they get charged again, or are they going to, and this is dependent on the editor, I'm sure, but.
With us, we do another round. And my suggestion is if you're budgeting, then of course to only send back the changes. You know, you don't have to send the whole thing, especially if you're going to use the same editor. Now, if you've gone through a content edit and a line edit, and now you've done all this and you want totally new, then you want a new editor, and it's going to take that same amount of time to go through it. But what I can say, without a doubt in my mind, is we're one of the most affordable companies out there. So it's relative. If you want to have somebody who does it again and again and again, then find that. But we're very clear on what we provide and what we don't.
Awesome. And then Amy, we're down to the last question. Whoop, whoop. Sure. Amy wants to know, she said, I heard you say 3 to 4 cents per word, but didn't hear what that corresponds to in terms of services.
Sure. That's it depends upon the level of editing, but again, that's going to be around a high level line edit to a content edit, depending if you're going to get the critique or if you're doing the story coach. So, but you can't purchase on the price, you have to purchase on your needs. So again, I would go back and find out what the editor thinks you need, and then they're going to give you a firm price quote from that point. So I'm not saying that you don't have control, it's a yes or no, but they're not going to give you anything less than you need. So if your budget limits you, then, you know, it'll either be a match or it won't.
Yeah, good. So shop around, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Do an editor dating and go with the one that feels like the best feel.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, There were some in some questions in the chat.
The name of
that
the
I missed.
company I saw was FirstEditing.
Yep, FirstEditing. I answered that for her. Let's see. My book is complete. I distributed it among myself and my friends. Can I send it to you to review and quote on what it'll take to get a professional publishing edit?
Sure.
All righty.
Send it on in. That would be editors@firstediting.com, or you can go to our website and fill out a form.
editors@firstediting.com. Well, this has been amazing. This is so great. It's really, you guys offer such a wide variety of support to authors. And I really, like, I have seen, oh my gosh, the horror stories I have seen. Oh, the horror stories we have seen. So it's nice to have a professionall company that we can refer people to and say, you can go here and at least get a sample edit, get some, I mean, we suggest people go and ask and interview at least 3 different editors just so that they can feel like it's a good place. But when you know you're coming into an editing company, not to say that the freelance editors are bad. Like, we've worked with some incredible freelance editors. I do not want to say that, but you know, this is a great opportunity as well. So, I appreciate you taking your time and coming in and sharing all this information. And I think we have reached the end of the questions. So we will say
thank
goodbye.
You so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy this. And if there's any questions to follow up, please let me know. I did want to mention that we will offer a discount. I know everyone's struggling through this COVID and at home and writing. So we thought we would just name it WIP 19, that's Women in Publishing. Perfect. 19 to match our COVID-19 wonderful year. And that will be valid. That'll be a 19% discount until May 31st. So again, reach out to us and let us know. We can be contacted on phone or email or chat. And there's normally somebody there who can help you. So I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much. And as everything's still staying calm and wonderful. And she's in Costa Rica. We forgot to tell everybody this.
Yes. It is lovely. I can hear the waves outside the window right now. And they finally gave us 3 hours a day on the beach. So from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. you can go out and run or walk or swim or surf. Nice. And we are so glad to have that again. So.
You know what? I thought we were done. I'm sorry. There is one.
Sure,
if you have 2 more minutes, this is actually a really good question. Is the editor shopping mostly when you are going to self-publish?
Is it mostly? No, I don't think so. But of course, if you're self-publishing, you have a lot more at risk. So of course, you want to make sure that you're doing the best there because, you know, there are more people looking out for you because it's not just your interest when you're with an editing or a publishing group. But when you're alone, you really need to make sure that you have that. And my advice would be, when you're self-publishing, to not just hire an editor and think you've done all you've done. There are many experts that need to surround you, from the book launch to the platform building to the websites to, you know, all of that. And that's so much more than just 1 or 2 people in your pocket. So you can get them as needed, and that's the good part, but you do need them. So I would not discount them.
Well, I wonder if from their perspective is if they're trying to go the traditional route, should they get an editor? And I always say yes, because of what you said, put your best foot forward before you pitch.
You can't get through the gatekeepers. There's certain things nowadays that you will not be able to. And there are a lot of freelancers out there who can make the introductions for you. And I've met quite a few of them, and that's very important. So again, make sure that you're doing everything you can to not blow that one chance that you get.
Agreed. You only get one shot, as Eminem says.
That's it.
Not that I would normally be quoting rappers, but.
No, one of my favorites right there. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we will be in touch soon.
Okay. Thank you. It was great meeting you all, and have a great day.
Thanks.